Good morning.
Hi, everybody.
We're struggling this morning. We're on the struggle bus.
We had a last minute cancellation, so I decided I know a little bit about UX, so I thought I'd join.
Yeah, UX is a very important part of any business development.
I was gonna compliment Tanya. Tanya, your facial hair looks fantastic, but Tanya had to cancel, so we got it.
Tatiana. Your little
Tatiana.
Yeah, there was a little error in your notes. Anyways, hello, friends. We talk about being founders and making $1 million and all of that sort of thing. And I went to my accountant and I said, I want to make $1 million. And she said, okay, start with 2 million and then build a startup.
It's the easiest way to make $1 million in a startup right there. Start with 2.
Start with 2 million.
Yeah.
Start with 2 million, put it all in Bitcoin.
That's right. How are you guys today?
I am
good.
I've been thinking a lot about marriage, and something that my dad said to me. He said, "You're never complete until you're married, and then you're finished."
I thought you had a UX joke.
I did. It wasn't good. It didn't make the cut.
No.
Okay. 2 guys walk into a bar. The third one ducked.
We have it all out of our systems now.
This is what happens when your internet drops, Stephanie. We find sound effects.
Okay, listen. What if the hardest product to learn is one users never leave? Katrina Owen's exorcism forced coders to submit solutions to human mentors instead of auto-grading. The deliberate friction produced completion rates that dwarfed every self-paced coding platform. Today on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about understanding user experience, why the best products feel slightly hard, how behavioral design builds retention that surveys can't predict, and the hidden cost of making everything frictionless. I'm your host, Stephanie Hayes. With me today are my questionable co-hosts, Chris Franks and Anthony Franco. And Anthony, we are going to be leaning heavily on you today. Our guest canceled, so you are on board. Tell us everything about UX. Why does simplicity first actually break down when you're building products? And by the way, user experience is not just a software term, right? User experience.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. UI is different than GUI. I know I'm responsible for the show notes. I didn't align with anything that opening said. So I'm glad that I get to not take credit for that and still have to take blame for it. But user experience. So I've been in user experience for almost 2 decades. Started the world's first user experience agency, sold it to WPP. So I know a little bit about this subject. Sorry, but I just wanted to say, like, I'm not just a fill in here. I kind of know a little bit about what we're talking about. And when user experience first started, it was all started by, you can give it all credit to UX to Johnny Ive and what he did at Apple. There's academics in user experience, and then there's actual practitioners. Johnny Ive is the best at practicing with user experience. And he won't talk about simplicity and complexity. He just doesn't talk about those things in that way. Some things have to be simple, and some things you can't obfuscate the complexity. So none of what the opening said made any sense to me.
Okay, so this, we're getting somewhere here, but let me ask you a slightly different question then. What do you believe to be true about good UX?
You don't notice it.
Okay.
My favorite story on this is kind of related to, but not exactly user experience. So, in the early 2000s, before I started Effective, I was working at Warner Brothers, and the person that was walking me around the lot in my first couple of days. So I was in feature post production, and he was pointing things out to me, and he said the best advice I had ever on feature post is and in special effects is, if you notice a special effect, it didn't do its job. If you're watching a movie and you say, that was an awesome special effect, you've lost, because people are noticing the effect and not noticing the movie. They're not involved in the story. And really, when you're designing a user experience, and like you said, it doesn't have to mean UI, like a user interface. It can mean a voice conversation, a customer service workflow, or an actual graphical user interface. If you're noticing the UI, it's getting in the way of the user being able to get their stuff done.
So maybe a good place to start is to define what UX actually is. What's user experience?
There's been books written on this.
Right. But maybe because you're such an expert, you can distill it down to
I will.
What the experts say.
Yeah, and then there's these big debates on whether or not UX and UI are different things. And the one thing about the industry is we're all self-congratulatory and self-serving. Like we love to talk about talk to ourselves. User experience is simply what it is. It's defining the best way to engage a user through a process or through a piece of software. It is the practice of making things, I wouldn't even say easy to use. It's the practice of designing use.
Yeah. And UI sort of fits underneath that as a sort of one of the things that we would possibly develop. So user experience is the full experience, right? It's like, do I first, interact with you by a contact form, and then I have a phone call, and then I am given an email, and then I log in, or then I, get something shipped to me that's a little teddy bear, and like that full end-to-end experience is UX. And I think it gets a little bit sort of bastardized by the software industry by people thinking user interface design is user experience design. And I think that distinction is super important, right? Because
that's exactly right.
UX is a bigger conversation, and UI is just one piece of how we ensure good UX. So if that's our definition of user experience, now take a step down into what are some of the ways that founders get tripped up on user experience design. They don't pay enough attention to it. They try to overcomplicate it. Like where are the big gaps? What do our people need to be aware of?
So the big traps for founders, one, that if they're designing a tool for themselves, then they have the best advantage. If they're designing a tool for somebody that's not them, they need to get very deeply empathetic with the person they're designing for. So typically, the typical mistake is I'm building something that I would like to use, but are you your end user? That's the first mistake. The second mistake is conflating pretty buttons with user experience. Graphic design and user experience they're related, but not the same thing. How do you make something? Friction is the best word. So let me back up to the intro. The intro said sometimes friction is good, and you can say that depends on who your end target is, right? It can go from making it as simple as possible to use to making it really difficult, because difficult is good for the company. I'll give you an example. How hard is it to cancel a software subscription? That's UX. That's what I would call black hat UX, introducing friction to make something difficult because you don't want to lose customers. It is also a user experience practice. I think it's evil, but that is something that is UX. So friction, but I do think that the end goal for any founder should be to reduce complexity and friction for their users. And that often gets lost in not knowing their users or feature creep. It can do this, and it can do this, and it can do this. And now you have a whole list of buttons and features and settings, and it completely confuses the end user.
So who should be... Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry. So the thing that has always struck me about this art and science that is UX is that it's a very, it's so important, because on one side, you have your values as a company. You have your brand. Your brand is the outward facing of your values, but it genuinely starts with who you want to be in the world. What is it that you care about in the company? And on the other side are your customers. And user experience is the space between those two areas. It's the space where you can design products, experiences, care, support, services, Stephanie, right? Like, this is how we interact with our clients, is the user experience.
Yes.
Where people get in trouble is where they fall out of balance in one of those two areas. And what you were just saying, Anthony, with like feature dumping, all this whole world of just throwing stuff, is they forget who they are and what they want to build and what problem they want to solve and what their values are as a company. Or maybe it's the other way around. They forget what their customers actually want. It is about the balance between your personality and how you want to serve the people that you should be caring about most, which is your customers.
And you bring up something really interesting. Yeah. So you also bring up something really interesting when you talk about brand. I wrote an article for the Society of Digital Agencies a while back, and it was like, does marketing and UX does UX belong in marketing? Are they enemies? Is marketing and UX enemies? And there is a point where they cross, but user experience is customer service, and marketing, I call it sell versus serve, right? Marketing's job is to sell, is to bring customers, to onboard customers. In my potentially limited worldview, marketing's job is to bring up onboard customers into the system. User experience is to serve customers once they're on. It's persuade is marketing, and serve is user experience, and they are at odds. And you need to decide. If you're a solo founder, you need to put different hats on. You're like, I'm persuading today. Take that hat off, put another hat off, and say, now I'm going to serve my customers that have entrusted me with their dollars. I do think they're different disciplines.
So there's two questions in there for me. One is, who's responsible for UX? Like, where does it live in the company? And let's start with that, because
product.
I think that it matters, right?
Yeah. Where does product live? That often depends on the company. Sometimes product lives under marketing. Sometimes product lives as its own department. It really depends on the company. I've seen it successful as its own. I've seen it successful living like on its own, like answering to the CEO. I've seen it successful answering to the right CMO. But it's generally in one of those two places.
Here's why I'm challenging that, though, Anthony,
Mhm.
is that if we're talking about Apple as the greatest UX company of all time, they are passionate about their user experience. That emanates everything from every bit of their marketing message, their branding message, their website, their stores. Every bit of that experience revolves around this idea of design. It is not a product-related decision.
Very common mistake is to try to copy what Apple does.
Yeah, exactly. Don't copy Apple. End of one, right?
You're not Steve Jobs. It's not going to happen.
Right. Thank God you have a good relationship with your children. Like, you know.
But I think, it's a good point, because if you think about Apple, like UX can be extremely strategic, right? How much attention you pay to UX can make or break customer adoption, right? It can make or break your whole sales cycle. So does it belong just in marketing?
No, it absolutely doesn't. So think of it this way. There's companies with really bad UX and great marketing that do really well. There's companies that have great user experience, great products, and do no marketing and do really well. It just depends on the industry. It is the standard Pat entrepreneurial answer. It depends. Right.
It depends, but it also matters, right? It's like an incredibly, I don't care if you're building software or you're building a widget, UX can have a major effect. And so here's the sort of follow-on question to that. What I've seen happen is, especially in the software development world, is that the developers push back and say, oh, from a technical perspective, it's more efficient to do things this way. And then we lose the whole user experience, right? And that's been my experience, right?
So common tension between what good UX is, and so let's define a little bit further what good user experience is. It's not only the right user experience, but it also has to be practically implementable. So a really good UX person, UX for me is synonymous with product. If you're responsible for user experience and you're responsible for the product, you can't delineate the two. And then you get into, for software products, it specifically, who should own the product? Should it be tech or should it be design?
Well, it's the product manager.
But is a product manager technical or design oriented? What wins? What should win?
A good product manager, and I'm going to go down this rabbit hole for 1 second. As
a certified
product manager, a product manager is actually. Last year, I was building a full team of product managers for a big organization, and it was really, really hard to do because a product manager is exactly, that's why they're sort of unicorns. They are both creative marketing and they understand the technical implementation. And so they're the ones who have to, lead and negotiate and pull in both sides. So I've always argued that you got to be really selective in who you're putting in the product management field, because UX, whether it's the domain of the product manager or higher up, UX has to be a combination of all of those pieces brought together.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think product management is the owner of user experience. But you can't, design has to lead, but it can't, but that puts a lot of responsibility on the person responsible for user experience to make sure it's actually technically possible.
But UX shouldn't be led by designers because it's not just a design effort, right?
No, I'm talking about UX architects. So UX and design for me are kind of the same thing. Capital D, design.
If you're in the software world.
No, service design is design. It's still a design process.
Yeah, but a designer is typically like what we're talking about as a graphic designer. Chris, like, where does this hit for you in all of your experiences? Because I know that, like, you're sitting here kind of going, you guys are nerds, whatever, right?
I mean, I say that every time I'm on with you. So yes, that's
Yeah,
exactly
fair
what
enough.
I'm saying. Here, I think that we can debate whether or not it's a design function or UX or even a product function, but there is this idea, and it's a central tenet, which is, we say it all the time, is there's no truth in the building. You have to get out and you have to talk to your customers, and you have to watch how your customers interact with the product. And you have to really understand the needs and desires of the customers. Here's the thing that happens, and the reason why I think UX is so important is that we end up with understanding our customers, and then we go back to our office and build products without truly being empathetic around what our customers need and want. And I think that UX, and really it can be UX, and it can be driven by design, or it can be more of a product management function. But somebody in the room has to be the voice of the customer. And when I say they're the voice of the customer, they have to go out and actually talk to the humans. And they have to understand the humans. They have to watch them use the product. And that's that idea of tying that real world component back into what's actually happening and what you're building. And guys, like, we've seen this so many times when friends of ours, smart people, I've done it. We've built shit that nobody wants because we lose sight of what it is that we're building and for whom.
No, so let me give you a
it's
pattern.
architected well. It's smart.
Let me give you a pattern that's kind of that's a slightly different take. I have a story. I call it "Where's the refresh button?" So this is related to what you were saying, but it's also another pattern that founders often make. So when you talk about empathy and understanding your users, you have to go one layer deeper. Early on, we were contracted, Effective was contracted to build eBay Desktop, which is a desktop eBay experience. So instead of going to ebay.com, you download this app, and it was more for like power buyers, right? Power buyers on eBay. And early testing, we kept getting the request, where's the refresh button? Now, back in the day on eBay, in order to see where your product was, the countdown timer, you had to hit refresh. You had to hit the refresh button in order for that page to refresh, so you know where are you at in your bids, how much time is left, are you the winning bid? So you have to keep hitting refresh. Well, the eBay Desktop pulled it was an open socket, so it was live data, but we kept getting asked, where's the refresh button? So what we did as good as servant designers is we put a refresh button in that basically did the same thing as the close button does on an elevator. It did nothing, but it made people feel good when they clicked it. And then Lance Chrisman, who was one of our chief UX, he's like, wait. What is the user really asking us for? They're saying what are they saying to us when they say, give me the refresh button? They're saying, I don't trust the data. I don't trust what's happening right now. I need to know that what I'm looking at is live. So he said, we're going to pull the refresh button out because it doesn't do anything. And we're going to add a little countdown timer onto each listing that you're seeing to show how much time is left. And that countdown timer just is live. It tells you how much time is in. And sure enough, we took the refresh button on, put that on, the request went away. It was so successful that eBay decided to do the same thing on their .com and show that the listings are live. And the moment they launched that feature, the marketer responsible for eBay.com pulled it. Like within an hour, he pulled it. The reason why he pulled it is because traffic fell off a cliff. Because people weren't hitting refresh. It was by design, right? So once they deciphered what was happening, by design they put it back on and just saved a whole bunch of money because they're not getting all this website traffic. All that long story to just basically say that empathy piece matters, but you have to You have to have discernment of what they're actually asking for. What's the root cause of what they're asking for?
So, how do you know when user experience, your UX design is a problem? Like, how do you know when that's something that you need to pay attention to?
The answer is it is now. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're working on, user experience is a problem. It can be better. It needs to be better.
Fair enough. But, we're founders with constrained resources and we've always got 800 things to do. What are some of the triggers that tell me you got something going on with your UX?
So if you're talking about like software products, it's churn. It's typically churn or time in the product. Those are typically the two things that we take a look at. You need to make it, if you're a software company, hell, if you're any company, if you're selling hamburgers, you need to go live and walk the experience of your customers on a regimented basis. You need to go sit over somebody's shoulder and watch how they're using your product or using your service. If you're not doing that, you are in the blind and you're going to make decisions that are going to destroy. So the answer is, I think the higher level answer is, if you're not walking in your customer's shoes, it's already a really big problem.
Right. Chris, you're a mucky muck CEO. How often do you even have a UX conversation with your team?
We don't, because at this stage, everything is UX. And what I mean by that is that we haven't differentiated yet what user experience is versus anything else. It's all in this early stage of trying to understand exactly what the customer wants and trying to figure it out and trying to bring all that right stuff to market. And so, and this is where I'm struggling with it, Anthony, but I think I've come to a conclusion in my mind. UX is being a founder. It's about understanding the needs and wants and desires of a customer and trying to figure out what you build and where that meets. The reason why maybe that I'm not as familiar with it is because UX really has to play in once you start to evolve, where you can lose touch with that, where you can lose touch with your customer and customer experience. And when you start to make decisions that are broader, that are not about that connection with the customers you have. Is that fair for both of you? Is that a fair way to think about it?
Yeah, but I don't want to diminish the practice of UX either. So there it is a discipline that has deliverables and has those deliverables matter. And how you go through the UX process does matter. So, but yes, in general, just like every other thing, who's responsible for sales? Who's responsible for marketing? Who's responsible for customer service? It is the founder, right? It is the person at the top of the company. And if you're going to take it seriously as your company is growing, you're going to need to delegate that as the person that is they're being completely measured on how well their customers are being served.
Can I ask one big, honking, elephant in the room question? What role does UX play now in a world that is going to be dominated by natural language LLMs?
It is
artificial intelligence.
It is the defining skill. It is the only differentiator in AI.
Explain.
Design thinking is the only differentiator in AI. Because, so I'm going to go down another AI. So I'm in AI now, and obviously I have an opinion on this. But the problem right now with people getting results out of AI is not the models. Let me say that again. It's not Anthropic's fault if Claude Code doesn't produce what you want. It's your fault. The models are so well architected and so smart that you can get it to design and you can get it to build pretty much whatever's in your head. The problem isn't the models. It's your ability to get what's in your head into the model. It's the design thinking behind, here's the architecture that I'm looking for. Here's all the things that I needed to do. That is all what I would call a UX or systems thinking process. So AGI is not going to hit because our ability to translate what our intent and ambition is into the AI. And that is almost exclusively a UX mindset.
So let me give you a little example, just to my answer to that question, Chris. We are working on building a tool right now that is AI leveraged, but it is built for an audience that doesn't want to learn a new tool, that doesn't like, but the curation is the important piece, right? So we're giving them something that solves a problem for them because they are these people who aren't going to go and learn a bunch of tools and aren't going to, don't have that. So we have to make the UX is super important in this sense, but we're leveraging AI to be able to solve that gap. So AI is part of the answer to the user experience that differentiates what they could have had before.
It also gives you the ability to do a lot more experiments a lot faster. Get shorter cycles in front of users very quickly. AI is actually incredibly great for the consumer because better products are going to result from it.
Right. And it's the curation capabilities of AI that I think are extremely important in terms of UX. Yep. Okay. Last question and I kind of want to ask this for both of you. Is there a reason to strategically make your user experience harder in order to help the business? Would you build friction into your UX?
Chris?
I think the answer is yes, but also it depends. But I'm going to go back to a classic part of building SaaS on freemium models. So freemium, not necessarily as big as it used to be, but it's still a time-tested concept around whether or not you should have somebody pay or et cetera. We went through an entire generation where every product was free to try for a period of time, and then you had to put your credit card. The problem is conversion on that was something like 1 to 3%. The moment that people put additional steps, including adding a credit card in before you got a free trial of the product, it dropped initial conversion, but increased long-term conversion of actual paid users. And in that particular case, that's a user experience question that is adding friction, but is better for the business long term. And you're going to get a lot less tire kickers. And the people that are going to be trying your software are people that are going to actually be interested in using it long term, as opposed to people like me that would just try stuff because they wanted to see what was going on and just, because I like to try cool new stuff, even though I had no intention of buying it long term.
So I would call myself a UX purist. And friction is for games. Friction is for entertainment. So if your goal is to entertain and to stoke dopamine in your users, friction is a really good thing. That's not the kind of products I like to be a part of. It's just not my expertise. When you're trying to, I come from a point of I'm here to serve customers, and adding friction is the opposite of that. So for the kinds of things that I involve myself in, the answer is absolutely no. I'm constantly looking to remove friction, not add it.
You're like the trad wife of the UX space, right? I'll weigh in on this just really quickly, and then we're going to go to the speed.
I don't know why that's related. It just felt like it was
I'm glad that we brought that clip back. The super fans will remember that.
I'm the trad wife.
How many super fans do we have?
Like at
Super
least,
fans.
at least
So
one.
like the thing we haven't actually really talked about yet, but I think is super important to this conversation is that intersection of design and psychology, right? Because UX is all about it is much deeper and more nuanced than, oh, it would be nice to click on this button, or walking through a process, because there are true psychological factors in terms of that are less overt than what we think. Like, I'm not thinking of a good one right now, but it's like, if we know that users are doing a certain thing, it's based on psychology, right? It's our experiences and our expectations. And so you really do need a UX member of your team who actually understands human psychology in the buying process, in the in their beliefs about whatever it is that you're trying to make them do, and blah blah blah. Like, it's such an interesting practice that I think is far deeper and far more nuanced than just, does it look nice and can people access it?
One quick thing before you jump into speed round. I'm gonna present a counter argument to what you just said, and that is, if you're trying to make your
I thought we talked about this before. You don't argue with me. Okay, what's your counter argument? Let's hear it.
If you're trying to get your users to do something, if you're in the I want them to buy phase, that's not UX, that's marketing. Again, I'm a UX purist. UX doesn't belong in marketing. Persuasion and serving are two different things.
But I still think that applies even inside of the delivery side. Like, I think it's I don't care whether it's marketing or like what you're trying to get them to do. Even if you are a UX,
if you're trying to convince them to buy, if you're trying to convince them to buy, that's marketing. If you're trying to
why
reduce
normal
friction,
people think UX people are absolute, like, incorrigible nerds, Anthony. It's because
I both matter. Both apps. I love marketing. I love sales. I just think you can't. If you start mixing the two, it gets really wonky really fast.
Well, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that whether you're trying to, the outcome is to get somebody to buy something, or whether the outcome is for someone to have an amazing TradWife experience with your product, it doesn't matter. It's still it's still true that human psychology is super important to understand.
Psychology matters for both. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. The way that we have to know how people are thinking, because I think it's super interesting, because I've always built software for people who are ready to use software. And this product we're building right now is really attempting to build technology for somebody who doesn't want to use technology, right? So it's a super interesting experience because we have to know how they're thinking. And we spent 2 hours yesterday just hyper analyzing how this person thinks and answering lots of questions about how they think. And that's what's going to translate into good UX. All right, let's dive into the speed round. All right, you both have an opportunity to answer these questions. First question: kill a feature 20% of users love. Is that the right call?
Maybe.
Only if it's pissing 80% of your customers off. Otherwise, no.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it distracting from something else? I would say early stage, probably, because if you're spending dev time on trying to maintain it and add it, etc.
Should your best feature require effort to find? What are these questions?
No.
I don't think I have that question.
Terrible. No.
Terrible question. Speaking of AI, friction that teaches or friction that frustrates? Can you tell the difference?
I think that there is adding thoughtful friction to try to make sure that your users will learn how to use the product. But it's a really fine line. You better be real smart about how you do it.
I think trying to design friction, the right kind of friction, is the complete wrong mindset. Don't do that. Unless you're building a game or entertainment, don't do that.
Would you rather ship a complex, feature-rich product or a boring, easy-to-use one?
I'd prefer to ship a complex, easy-to-use product.
That wasn't an option for you.
It's possible.
You can just like make up your own answers.
Look at the iPhone. It's a very complex product, very easy to use.
I would, if I had to choose that, I would probably say the second, because you can simplify over time.
Okay. Last question, because I don't know. User surveys, are they essential research or dangerous fiction? I mean, this is a whole other topic, but answer the question.
User surveys are a single data point in an entire UX strategy. They are not something you lean your UX strategy against. Same thing with focus groups. You know where the focus group was. I say surveys and focus groups are similar. You know where the focus groups, where the first focus, what product the first focus group produced? It was the Ford Edsel, a famously bomb product.
But I think there's a conversation here around. There's two conversations here that we're not supposed to be doing because we're in the speed round. But there's two conversations here around, like how you structure your user feedback and your user research is incredibly important, because you could get a lot of incorrect data. And then secondly, it also speaks to what I think a lot of people do and try to bypass the actual interaction with humans just through surveys and collection of data and like kind of trying to do it at scale. And you really miss what you get when you actually sit down with humans.
Yeah, it's a single data point. It's a tool in the UX toolbox, not the strategy.
Chris, what's your answer to that? The speed round.
The answer is that it's not a very good data point. And the most important business book ever written is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, about how humans actually process information. So people should go read that, and then we can kill these things called focus groups and user surveys because they're stupid.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Deep dive resources: Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products by Nir Eyal, and The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. And then, as we just talked about, Thinking Fast and Slow. Go grab those resources if UX is interesting to you, which it should be as a founder. And remember, this applies to more than just SaaS products or software. This, user experience is in everything that we do as founders. Okay, Chris, do you want to close us off?
Hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate you people. We think that you're amazing. We think you're the pioneers. You people.
You the people.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
All yous out there.
You value creators. You people that are working hard to try to create and build something new in the world. It is an amazing thing, and we appreciate you. We're incredibly humbled to be a small part of your day. And maybe you learned something. Maybe you laughed at our dad jokes. I don't know. But if you like us, why not subscribe?
Here's a link to send us a PayPal. Yeah.
Yeah, we do this for free because we love you guys, but we do like it. We've been growing a bunch, and we really appreciate people actually listening, interacting, giving us a thumbs up. But the best thing you can do is like or subscribe. We appreciate that. Thanks, really Anthony. Thank you for really supporting me in my closing.
And I'd like to read you my manifesto.
Have a great day. We'll see you next week.